to come closer to God, but I can't find Him, so I'm feeling lonely. Does anybody connect with this? Everybody? So, when you're trying to connect to God, you feel lonely? Or when you're trying to come closer to God, you feel lonely? Or or you're actually lonely because you want to be away from God, because they're two different things? What is it?
I think it's lonely because because sometimes you don't make the time to connect, so you feel lonely because you're not properly connected, because you're not investing enough time
with God.
Yeah. So obviously that makes you feel lonely.
Not the other way, that I want to be away from God, then I'm feeling lonely. What do you think? Okay, so we're all agreeing to that, because I'm trying to find God, then sometimes I'm feeling lonely. The other one here, that is, I'm feeling lonely because I'm spending too much time with myself. I try to avoid others. And there's one here that because I like to have my evening meals alone.
That wasn't me.
I have a naughty bunch here.
That wasn't me. Yeah, of course.
So I'm trying to find others, hence I'm lonely. So this is an interesting bit. We talked about God. Some people said I'm lonely when I'm not busy, when I'm away from friends, when I don't feel that I have the persona, when I'm not surrounded with people. So the main theme here is about I'm feeling lonely when I'm detached away from family and friends, and I think all of us can relate to that. So I'm not going to go to this. One thing here that I liked is I'm lonely because I'm not setting my priorities right. And this one I really liked. So when I don't have my priorities right, I sometimes just go into so many different directions, and all of a sudden I end up all alone on the path. Can we all relate to that? Okay, let us finish I'm lonely. Then what I'm trying to avoid. So again, I group them as much as I can. This one is interesting. I avoid people because I don't trust them. Big font. Okay. I avoid big people groups. I feel sometimes inadequate with mingling with too much people. I avoid celebrations. It's all around big groups. We sometimes can't avoid that because I don't feel comfortable in fitting in with big groups. But it is the effort that I make to try to come into it. So this part is also very interesting, and I don't know, has anybody discussed this in their discussion groups? Can anybody shed some light on this? About avoiding big groups, avoiding gatherings, avoiding celebrations. And this one is also very interesting. I avoid people because I don't want them to cloud my judgment. So there's very interesting messages coming out of this. This group here, I think we have another problem with this group.
Wait, can we go back to the other group first?
You want to go to this group?
Yeah, I just want to recognize all of them for coming today. Well done.
That's great. Or maybe they've already left.
You need to have them back 5 minutes ago.
This group, these are a problem group, okay? And I'll say why. Because they say here, let me just say this. Because of different standards, because they don't meet my self-esteem, because I focus on their problems rather than myself, because they are too loud, immature, and young.
Sorry.
That definitely is not me. Okay. So, do we do this? Do we actually try to avoid people because we have this personal image of them, or we think that they're immature, or think that they're a loud bunch, and we just want to detach ourselves from them? Is it true?
Certain people.
Certain people? So what do you think of this group? Is it a loud group?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Definitely not immature, but
I've heard something close to that. Not in this group today, but from others when I'm doing outreach and I see that people are not coming to the church. They're avoiding the groups because they feel there's too much gossip or there's too much talking or that kind of thing. And that I think I'd like to know how to address that, because you're going to find that everywhere. It's not a good reason to avoid being a part of, being connected.
How do you deal with those people? I'm just going to go off a little bit from the topic. How do you deal with, how do you get those people in?
Confront. Oh, sorry.
How?
Well, for me, I don't listen to gossip anyway. It's me entertainment rather than that. I'd rather, if I hear something about someone, I'd rather hear it from the source than hearing it from other people.
So you're going to speak to them directly? And if
Is
they're
the question how you deal with gossip, or how you deal with trying to recruit people back to church?
Those people who say, like, this bunch of people in church, for example, are immature, they're too loud, they're not up to my own standards.
You can't generalise. You can't say an entire group is too loud and an entire group is immature. You have to focus and say which ones are the ones that are causing you the problem, and work out whether it's a personal thing or whether it's a historical thing. Is it something that they associate with something 10 years ago and haven't forgotten, or is it something that they perceive and isn't real?
That's good. Yeah.
I think each and every one of us kind of travels in a journey towards God. So I think all of us go through different stages in our life, both socially and spiritually as well, where we will be immature and we will be childish and we will be loud at a certain point in our life, and then we might move on. But it's important to realize that we shouldn't avoid people who are loud, or in our opinion, and we shouldn't judge, by the way. So one of the papers you spoke about judgment. Judgment shouldn't be there in the first place at all. But then we should recognize that we should mingle with people who are loud or who we think are childish or not spiritual enough, because they are moving on their journey towards God, and we can help. We can step in there and help.
It is the acceptance factor, thank you so much. It's the acceptance factor. It is that we accept each one as they are. Okay? We don't have to be very close friends with them, it's not a must, but we accept that each one has a different personality, and I have to deal with them based on that.
And we should strengthen them as well. I think we do have responsibilities that Christ has given us to actually mingle with these people and strengthen them, because we are all one body. So we can detach ourselves from them.
Great. One other one that I liked is I avoid God sometimes because He makes me feel guilty. Ooh. That is. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a point to
This one or another
the one we were just talking about,
okay, sure.
where people avoid other people because they feel that the different social standards or whatever. I think sometimes someone might look at that and look at themselves and compare themselves with the people that they're going to interact with and feel that they're inadequate to interact with those other people, and that kind of that's a lack of confidence, self-confidence. I think that relates to the first point that we were talking about, where someone's disconnected from God. Same as what you were saying with Gideon's story, where he felt because he came from the weakest tribe, he wasn't good enough to actually go and interact with the people that God wanted him to interact with. So it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both.
Okay, going to this one then. I avoid God sometimes because He makes me feel guilty. What do you think of this one?
It's not God that makes you feel guilty. It's Satan that's convincing you you're guilty, so you can't go back to God. It's like a trick. It's like a booby trap.
Amen.
Well said.
Christ, we are free.
Yes. Hey, you should be in the Tahrir Square now.
Go, Joe!
Yeah. So.
You know that last point, how people might avoid like a group because they gossip and stuff?
Yeah.
I think that's because obviously when they come to a church environment, they have expectations of the people to not be doing things like that. But at the end of the day, I think you have to kind of realise that we're still people. We're not going to be the perfect group. But I do think as a group, we should encourage people more. Like, sometimes you don't realise it, but you're not trying to include everyone. You're just, because you know these people well, you're still not really welcoming new people
Yeah.
as much as we should, and we should recognise, gossiping is happening. Why aren't we, addressing that with each other sometimes? Because we don't.
Yeah.
One last point to add.
Sure.
I think we forget how lucky we are that we even have a group of friends and a community. Like we grow up taking it for granted that when you go to church you've got all these people that are your same age and that you can hang out with on a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever. And a lot of people in the world don't have that. Just compare yourself to anyone you work with. They find it fascinating that you have this community of Egyptians or whatever, wherever you're from. And it's actually quite a nice thing, so you shouldn't always think it's a bad thing to hang out with them.
Okay, the last one, so I don't take much of your time. I avoid having my quiet time as I prefer groups. The complete contrary of what we're talking about. And listening to Bible in Bible studies. Not even reading it, listening to Bible. Okay. Okay. So what is this? Is this valid? I avoid having quiet time. Can groups be a substitute to my quiet time? Okay, I'm not picking, of course, on anyone. I'm just showing the comments, and that's why this is anonymous. But it's for us to open a discussion. The quiet time is extremely important because on the three things that we said we're being separated from, starting off from God, then others, then self. The quiet time is the connection with God. That is the main connection with God. I can connect with God at any point in time, but my main connection time that I really feel God is during my quiet time. And I think all of us will agree. Does anybody disagree with what I'm saying?
What if you get a message
Uh-huh.
from that group you're in?
That's fine.
Like a Bible study, you're taking something from it.
Yeah, but it's never a substitute. I cannot substitute the quiet
It's a
time.
step forward.
Of course, going with a Bible study group, it's good. It's better than
It might be encouraging so that one day you will have that quiet time.
Yeah. It is a journey, but in the group that I was listening there, when I was sitting in, they were talking about forcing, that sometimes I force myself, or should I not force myself into doing something. So I might not like the quiet time because I say, I don't feel God, I'm not happy with it, it's a waste of time, whatever. But if I force myself and I keep on repeating it one after the other, time, I'll get to like it.
Yeah, I just want to add a point about quiet time. So if you think in life you have friends and you have acquaintances, you have people you say hi to, and you have real friends which you sit and have a one-to-one talk with, like you take them to the side and my friend, I want to talk to you about a problem. Quiet time is what we do with God. So quiet time, you sit with God. So, in a conference like this, in a group meeting, you get to listen and hear about God and discuss God and what He wants from you and how your relationship is with Him. But God remains an acquaintance. You're talking about Him and not to Him. In your quiet time, God becomes your friend rather than an acquaintance, because you sit and talk to God. And quiet time, I just want to add just finally, quiet time is when you attempt it, and I struggle with this personally, when you attempt it, Satan is going to try his best to cut your quiet time. It is a spiritual war, and he knows that you're connecting with God, you're talking to Him, and he hates that. That frightens him. So quiet time is actually a struggle. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's completely essential. It's your connection with God.
And we all know the tricks of Satan during quiet time. So telephone might ring, Facebook might come up, something might come to distract you, and if nothing else happens, you'll get something that says, you're a saint. Look, man, you're the one who's still praying and everybody else is asleep. You should have wings and just directly go up there. Of course, we should not fall to these. But anybody wants to add anything from the discussion groups?
Yeah, I just want to make a point about that.
Yes.
The thing about when I approach God, I feel guilty. I think guilt can be used in a positive way. If it can actually be conviction from the Holy Spirit that's designed to bring you to a place of redemption. It does talk about this concept of false guilt as well, though, where it brings you to a point of, well, if I go out and say enough prayers or help enough people or give away enough money, then that will restore me, which it won't. So I think guilt, perhaps even like Facebook, can be used as a tool, but can also be abused, and you can have this sense of false guilt. But if you're struggling with the guilt to the point where every time you approach God, then you're feeling this conviction, but you're not feeling the willingness from yourself to actually come to a place of repentance, then the issue is with you, not with God.
And use your stabilizers. You have two stabilizers, use them as we talked in the morning. This is when your two stabilizers become in very handy, especially the first one. Okay? Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, guys.